And welcome everybody to this special edition of the Lonestar Halo Podcast. It's me, Fernando, the Lonestar Halo, joined here by Todd. And of course, we got Jared Timms and Nate Green if you're watching on the video side. If you are listening, now you're just as surprised that they're joining us. But they're here from Talkin Halos, and we're going to talk Halos, the positive, the negative, all that and more right after this.
1, 2, 3, go! From Texas to Anaheim, we're bringing the heat. Todd and Fernando got the news every week. Walk-offs, strikeouts, who's making a name? Who's in the clutch and who's taking the blame? Lonestar Halo, talking baseball, here we go. Big hats, bad calls, who's gonna rise and who's gonna fall?
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the episode. Like Fernando shouted us out in the beginning, it's the Lonestar Halo Podcast with Halos in the infield and Talking Halos. Welcome to the show, fellas. We're glad to have you guys on. This is a nice little crossover episode. If you haven't already, follow them on our social medias, on their social medias, actually. Why don't you guys throw that out there first before you guys do your introductions?
Yeah, I'll do it here since I usually do it. Nate, you can follow myself on X at Jared_Timms. Nate at Nate Green 34. Got a fun little website that I only write on that you can find like my top 30 prospects. But yeah, we have a lot of fun and I mean, just you guys just absolutely destroy anybody's intro right there. Like I was just sitting there, I was like, well, I can't beat this. What is going on here? Nate, we got to work on it. Go ahead, get to work, Nate. You get off of here and go get to work on a better intro for us. Jesus.
Hey, I'll say this: AI is a great tool. You know what I mean? That is AI for you. So
until the robots come for us, it's pretty cool.
I love it.
So
Yeah.
Nate, introduce yourself there too.
Yes, Nate Green with Talking Halos and Jared. Excited to be here. This is going to be fun. We love doing the crossovers.
Absolutely. And, you know, we haven't had too many of them. We're not that popular in the podcast community, but we're glad you guys gave it a shot with us. And we're going to go from here talking our Angels baseball, like you guys said. Fernando, what's the first topic you want to get into?
Well, perhaps for anybody who doesn't know about Talking Halos, maybe we should give an opportunity to talk about your Angels fandom. You know, what made you even want to do an Angels podcast in the first place? We can start with Jared.
Yeah, I got a random phone call from Derek Ciapala, the owner, the GM, the man who created this, and was like, "Hey, you want to talk some baseball with us?" And I was like, "Absolutely, let's talk some Angels baseball." That was like 5-6 years ago now, and I tried to keep it going ever since. And I think during COVID, I asked Nate because everybody was kind of doing their own thing, and I was like, "Nate, you want to talk some baseball, get our mind off things?" And Nate's been on ever since, and it's been a lot of fun for us.
What made you into an Angels fan?
That's my dad. My dad's probably the one. Going to games as a young kid. Me and Nate we were going to games from when I think you were in 7th grade. I was in 8th grade. Probably before that. We played Little League. I hit my first home run off Nate. He doesn't believe it, but I did hit my first run off Nate.
Allegedly.
I did. But yeah, I've been an Angels fan as long as I can remember. I didn't appreciate 2002 like I should have. My dad was sitting up in front of the TV watching the Angels do their thing, and I was back carving pumpkins, doing something else because I was a big Ducks fan at the time.
Don't worry, they'll be back plenty more times.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't take me 40-something years like it took my dad. So
yeah.
But I mean, at this pace, we may be getting to that at that point. So yeah, but been an Angels fan forever. I didn't have season tickets, but I remember the $5 kids tickets. I used to go take advantage of that until I was 20-something years old and just would go sit wherever we wanted to, and just go watch an Angels game. That was the big thing. I absolutely loved it.
You used to pay $0.25 to sit in the 500s and watch Nolan Ryan pitch.
No, not that far back.
I've heard that story before from my dad. I didn't get
Okay.
Oh, well, favorite Angel, real quick, Nate or Jared. Sorry.
that.
All time. If you had to pick one. If you had to pick one.
Growing up, Trout, for sure. Like as I actually watched Angels, but as a young kid, it was either Troy Gloss or Jared Weaver.
Nice.
Both gamers for sure.
Absolutely. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, born and raised in the Angels family. My grandfather had season tickets from before I was born. Went to my first Angel game at like a year and a half, and been an Angel fan ever since. Yeah, and Jared and I, like Jared said, we went to games together. We would just like call each other 5 minutes before the game, be like, "Hey, your mom want to drive or my mom want to drive? Okay, we'll be there." And we literally would just hang out at the stadium all day. So that was kind of our thing growing up.
That's pretty cool, man. Favorite Angel of all time, if you had to pick one.
Oh, Erstad, big Erstad fan.
Like that.
He's
The hustle,
kidding.
right?
He actually likes Jose Suarez. That's his favorite.
Oh boy, he's trying to get me in trouble. We're like 5 minutes into this. He's already trying to piss me off.
Don't worry. What was it last year? I picked him as comeback player of the Angels. So
He did do that. That's the positive and negative about having a podcast, right? Your words are forever. So I'm sure we've all had some absolutely idiotic takes, and we've had some really good ones, but nobody pays attention to those. They pay attention to, hey, Jose Suarez is going to be the comeback player of the year. And, he still gets grilled in the comments by people. So
I do.
that's just the nature of the beast and how it works here. So let's take a quick temperature check. So we're a little over 30 games into the season. Where are the Angels in terms of where you thought they'd be this early? I mean, during the first 2 or 3 weeks, they were in first place going into Arlington, leaving that Houston series going into Texas. Obviously went on a bit of a skid since, but they did have a nice win yesterday against Toronto. So give them a grade as far as where you think they are right now.
Nate, give your grade. Go ahead.
I would still give it a D-. I think with what they've brought in, the guys that they've brought in, hasn't been good. Jared and I both had them winning about 68-ish games, right? 72, somewhere in there. So we're kind of on pace for where we thought they would be. But I think we were expecting. I personally would like to see a little bit more from like a Nolan Shanuel, a Jack Kahanowitz, even Reed Detmers. I wish they would have put him in the rotation. Things like that. Just like I want to see more from the young guys if we are going to go into the year with everyone kind of expecting 68, 74 wins, whatever. Like I want to see these guys develop, and Joe Adell would be another guy to add to that list of like he hasn't taken the step forward like we were expecting. So those are the things why I would give it a D-, just because I won't go F because they're still only 6 games under 500, but like it's been rough so far.
Agreed. Jared?
I think they're on pace. Yeah, like Nate said, I think they're on pace for what we thought they were going to do. I think I had them as a 72, 73 win team this year. I'd love to see the youngsters come around a little bit more. You mentioned it, Nate, Shanuel. I'd like to see Christian Moore get some, start catching fire in the minors, see the development side of stuff that we know that could happen with some of these players. So at the moment, I'll give it a D, but there's a chance that it could creep up if we start seeing some of these young players come up and at least somewhat produce, somewhat shine at the next level. I mean, George Clausen's absolutely shoving right now in Rocket City, and I expect to see him up after every single start. I expect to get the Clausen's on his way to Anaheim because he looks really, really good. Same thing with Dana. They have a good, decent young core group of guys. I'd like to see those guys continue to build up a little bit more for sure. And nothing against Kyle Hendricks or anybody, Tyler Anderson, but I think come July, we're going to see a lot more of those young players, young guys come in and take the reins like we did last year. The Samuel Aldegaris, the Caden Danas, Bryce Teodosio type of guys get their opportunities. So yeah, right now I'll give it a D, but at the end of the season, if we see a bunch of those players come up, I could be like, oh, it was a B year. Yeah, they won 70 something games, but we saw a lot of these young players develop well. So we'll see.
Jared, you have one of the better reputations in the Halo universe for prospects, and you're well respected in that space. So with that being said, let me ask you this: with a guy like Ron Washington steering the ship, is there valor and is there a good reason to call up some of these young guys when, let's face it, a lot of other fans of major league organizations think the Angels are crazy, right? Why would you call up Zach Neto and Nolan Shanuel, just to name a few of these guys, up so early? These guys should be developing. You guys said so on one of your episodes that one of the reasons why the Angels on paper have such a bad farm system in terms of like the ratings is because a lot of these guys should still be in the minors, right? I mean, Nolan Shanuel should probably barely be at the stage where he should be reaching the major league level. Instead, he got rushed up. Let's call it what it is. So do you think there is a legitimate reason why some of these guys should be called up as quickly as they have been to learn and fail essentially at the major league level?
Yeah, first I appreciate the kind words on that. I watch a lot of minor league baseball. I enjoy it, but yeah, I think me and Nate have talked about this a lot, and Nate pushes this a lot, that the Angels need to try new things, and the Angels have really been at the forefront of promoting their young talent, per se, their first round picks, or the Chase Silseth, who I think was an 11th rounder. Caden Dana came up and was the first pitcher to get a win under the age of 21 since I could Chuck Finley maybe, or something like that. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody crazy like that. It's been so long since they brought somebody up that young as a pitcher, but I think that it's difficult. I think they're at the forefront for sure. I just don't think that the Angels have the necessary pieces in the minor leagues, and not player wise, development wise, to go and do a lot of this stuff. So that's why we're seeing them push a lot of their players up. And I think we've seen a lot of teams copy what the Angels are doing in a sense too, and bringing up a lot of these young players. Like, we wouldn't have seen a lot. I'm trying to think. Jacob Wilson's a name that came up this year. Nate, I'm sure you can think of other guys there, but there've been a lot more players that are getting pushed, even in the higher minors. I mean, Jack Caglianone's already playing in AA, if not AAA, for in the Royal system, and they're talking about bringing him up already, and he was the 3rd, 4th overall pick last year. So I think the Angels were the forefront. I just don't know if the Angels were the right team to do it, just because they're the Angels. I mean, we've seen what they've had an issue.
Actually going to get laughed at because they're the Angels.
Exactly. They've had an issue forever in Brandon Wood, Dallas McPherson. I mean, the list of prospects go on forever, right? Like, you guys might be a little bit older than us and see those guys. And I mean, the last time they were good at development, and Nate, I, and Derek talked about this on the last podcast, was probably in the 90s, when Bill Bavasi and Bob Fontaine were at helm, and before Disney, and they were able to do what they wanted to do. So without getting deep into it, I don't know if the Angels were the right team to do this, but they also were the right team to do this because they just don't invest in the minor league system like other teams do, unfortunately. So you have to push your guys up, and it comes with failure too. Like, a lot of high schoolers that get drafted do not fail, and Nate and I talk about this all the time. A lot. Joe Adell never failed in the minor leagues either, and then all of a sudden 2020 comes around, and on the biggest stage he fails, and you have to learn what you're made of. And he's taking balls off the head, and he's all over Sports Center and things like that. And was it the right time to bring him up? Probably not, but also he was an unbelievable player in the minor leagues in 2019. I mean, he was the best player in the minor leagues. Like, he really was. He was unbelievable in the minor leagues, hitting just monstrous home runs. Like, it was crazy. So yeah, I just don't know if the Angels are well enough equipped in the major league level to help this production either. It's a never ending question. Like, it just constantly goes on. And I mean, I don't want to point it out what everybody's saying, but I think that you guys are kind of catching what I'm putting down there.
No, I am. I mean, until it actually starts clicking for the Angels long term, and this young core eventually is turning their potential into winning games, it's always going to be a mistake the Angels are making. It's always going to be, hey, why do the Angels rush up these guys? Maybe eventually it'll make sense. But right now it just doesn't. Jackson Merrill was another guy. He's 22. I mean, look at Juan Soto and Vlad Guerrero. Those guys were called up pretty early. You know, I almost wonder if now we're going to start seeing some of these guys hit free agency at the age of 25, 26. You know, if those guys were just the first raindrop of the storm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a really good trickle down effect because you're going to have more of those either extensions like the Jackson Merrills, what the Atlanta Braves did with their extension party that they did for years and with Acuna and everybody there.
Ozuna.
Yeah. I mean, everybody that got an extension and that dynasty that they created. Or you're going to see guys get to free agency like Juan Soto did and make $1 billion or close to it, you know? So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good for baseball in the long run. I just think that some guys are, you know, some players are going to fail. You're going to find it out a lot quicker. You know, there's not going to be a lot more money invested at the lower levels for these guys.
Nate, what's your opinion on these guys learning at the major league level? You know, do you like what you're seeing out of them? Are they developing at the rate that you'd like?
I mean, like with Neto, I think Neto is kind of the right type of guy where you've seen the flashes of like, oh, hey, he's gotten better every single year. So he's one guy that you could point to and be like, oh man, like it's working. But then you go and point to Nolan Shanuel and you're like, it's not really working. He is the same person he's been since we drafted him. And we haven't seen anything click where it's like, oh, he's gotten way better with this, or he's gotten way better with that. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into this as well. Like Jared and I went to a minor league game and we were sitting next to some Colorado people and they were talking about how like they just got Rapsodo in their own minor league ballpark like that year. And this was a couple of years back. And the Angels were like, oh, we just got Rapsodo in this ballpark like last year, you know? So like, that's why Jared and I kind of are like, you know, it kind of makes sense because there is so little resources that go into the minor leagues. It's like, okay, the most resources, the nicest things, they're at Arizona Spring Training Complex and they're at the big leagues. Those are the two spots where they're at. So if they're young enough to be in Arizona, great. If they're not, like get them to the bigs as fast as possible because that's where they're going to get the most help. But is that good for them long term? We'll find out because I think Major League Baseball wanted this too. They kind of pushed that rule of like, hey, if you get guys to the big leagues faster, you know, we'll start giving you draft picks and things like that. And so that's why I think you're seeing more of the Cam Smiths, the Nick Kurtz, you know, Julio Rodriguez a couple of years back, and all these guys have been kind of pushed up because Major League Baseball wants this. It helps the young guys get more money earlier. They're not having to sit in the minor leagues and make $600 a night or something like that. And it's like, oh, hey, these guys are making big league money because they're big leaguers. They were top 5 picks or they were first round picks. And it just makes sense to give them an opportunity. So it's kind of a little bit of like Major League Baseball wants this, the Angels and where they're at and what they've kind of put their finances in.
Yeah, I think gone are the days of like watching, like you guys brought up Brandon Wood. You know, I remember he had a year in the AAA farm system. He had like 34 or 40 home runs and over 100 RBIs. And everyone's like, oh, he's just penciling him in to be a starter next year. We all know where that went. But I have a question for you guys as far as like the struggles. You guys brought up some good points with the young kids wanting to get going, be the table setters or have table setters. It's a 2-part question for both of you. First off, the fans have been pointing towards the problem in the hitting side to the, you know, either the coaches or the players or the analytics, the information they're given. Which one do you think it is, number one? And number two, who is the prototypical, or if you had to pick one for the lineup on a night to be that table setter to get the lineup going?
Nate, go ahead. I'll let you take
it. He's like, you first.
Okay. Starting with like coaching staff, analytic department, hitting philosophy, all that stuff. I think first off, the Angels went in an extreme. Last year, they had no power. They were one of the worst teams in power. And they said, we are going to go the exact opposite and just get only guys that hit for power. We don't care about anything else. That's why they got Jorge Soler. That's why they went and got Moncada. Guys that are going to swing and miss a little bit more, but the guys that are going to hit the ball out of the yard. So I think it is a little bit of a philosophy mindset that has been an issue so far. I actually saw this on X the other day too. It's like everyone wants to fire every single hitting coach or every single pitching coach because they're so bad. And it's not just the Angels. It's, the Rangers have already done it. The Orioles are talking, like all these teams that are struggling. They're like, it's the coaching staff. It's the coaching staff. It's the coaching staff. If we're really realistic, all these coaches are really doing is they're just psychologists, right? They're there to kind of talk through guys and be like, hey, this is what I've been through. This is how you get through this. Like Joe, you're 0 for your last 15. Like I was 0 for my last 10. This is kind of what I would do to get out of it. Like they're there to just kind of help guys through stuff. They're not really there to talk to a guy that makes $20 million and be like, hey, we're going to change your swing in May and hopefully this gets you going. Like those guys go to their own people in the offseason. They do their own stuff. Like half the time they're not even with Angels hitting coaches. They've got their own people. So that's why it's hard for me to be like, oh, it's all Johnny Washington's fault. Ron is a completely different story because I think he actually manages some of the game, and there are some things that I disagree with. But when it comes from a hitting coach mindset, I don't think it's all on Johnny Washington. I think the philosophy of the front office and the analytic department isn't quite right. I think they're just like they're behind everyone is what it is. Like they're like a year or two behind everyone. Like we've already seen the A's try this and it didn't quite work. We've seen Tampa Bay try this and now it's not working for them. Like we've already seen teams try and fail this, and now the Angels are like, oh, hey, we can hit the ball in the air a lot and hit a lot of home runs and score a lot of runs. And it's like, yeah, look at the teams in the postseason. Some of those teams get there, but those teams don't win a lot of games. The Twins are one of those. The Yankees are one of those. Like the teams that hit the ball in the yard, they're not winning World Series. It's the teams that pitch out of their mind. It's the teams that put the ball in play, and it's teams that get hits when they need to.
And earn walks.
Yeah, and walks, right? Like getting on base and getting hits when you need to. Like those are the things that are winning baseball games, and it feels like the Angels are like, I don't know, 2-3 years behind all the other teams where they're already trying something new, and the Angels are like, oh, this worked for Minnesota a couple years ago, so let's try it. And the Twins are like, we already tried that, didn't work. We're moving on to something else, or fill in the blank with whatever team you want besides the Dodgers, because the Dodgers kind of have too much money to kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, marching the beat of their own drum, really.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
The Angels are like, man, that team was good in COVID year. Let's do what they did back then.
Yes. You're like, that didn't work. So, and then table setter wise, Jared and I actually talk about this a lot too, because we think Mike Trout should hit leadoff.
Really?
Like he did in his early career, huh?
Yeah, and we think it makes a lot of sense because, well, one, they're not throwing him strikes anyway. Whether he's hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, they're not going to throw him strikes because the guy hitting behind him is hitting $180, 210, 220. Like, I'm really not scared. And you can kind of look at what the Angels did to Toronto tonight. There was a fly ball to center. Paris catches it. The guy tags up, goes to second. Vlad comes up with 2 outs and a runner at second. They go, Santander's hitting $160 with 5 homers. Put Vlad on and let's go face Santander. They get Santander out and they're out of the inning. So that's what a lot of teams are doing with the Angels. So might as well put Trout at the lineup, give him the most at-bats possible, try and get him on base, and just tell him, like, hey, it's okay to walk. Like, you don't have to come up here and hit a bunch of homers. We can put Neto in the 2-hole, and hopefully he swings out of his mind and hits a couple of homers and, just kind of let the lineup roll that way, because hitting him 2 or 3, they're not getting on in front of him, and the guys behind him aren't hitting anyway. So what's the point of him hitting 2 or 3?
See, I was against that until you said, like to kind of taper him down a little bit and make him see a little bit more pitches, not to be so aggressive. Because I agree, he does have a good eye. It's just that rising fastball, man, has been getting him like crazy lately. So yeah, I mean, I would love to, because again, too, he's so fast, even with all the injuries, he can steal bases really easy out there. So I agree with it as long as they change his mindset. But yeah, Jared, what do you think?
I'd say I agree with Nate. We talk about it all the time. I want to see Trout at the top of the order. But if I didn't pick Trout, with how Zach Neto plays the game and his mindset, I'd say Zach Neto for sure. Cool thing about it is that with Ron Washington, I brought this up in the past. Like, you kind of have 2 different lineups. You have 1 through 5, and then 6 through 9 in there, and you kind of restart the lineup at 6 again. So I think that's kind of what Ron likes to do. So you kind of need 2 table setters in a sense. And I mean, if you were to put Trout at leadoff and Neto at 6, I don't think anybody's too upset about that. And you kind of flip the lineup twice in a sense there, and you have more opportunities. Now, I don't know if the Angels lineup is the best way to construct their lineup, but I do think that's kind of what Ron Washington's doing, and I'm okay with it. I'm not by any means upset about it, because with the Angels and how they hit, you get down and at the bottom of the order at some point, and you're facing Adele, Paris, and insert whoever you want there, Yohan Moncada, and they're all batting under 200. It's like it's going to be a rough night through 7, 8, 9. So
True.
Yeah, I'm indifferent there, but just to be different from Nate, I'll say Zach Neto. I think that just the mindset, and I think that he has the capability of being a leadoff hitter is in the future if the Angels need to go that route, for sure. When it comes to the Angels, you guys mentioned kind of the teams being on the forefront of things, and the Angels trying it second. This worked in 2020. This worked then. Like, let's do it now. The Angels used to be, and I'm going to sound like what the kids call it these days, a boomer in a sense.
Yeah. Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to sound like here, and I'm not even that old, but I'm going to kind of sound like that here. The Angels used to be in the forefront of everything. Taylor Blake Ward, a really good friend of mine, I talk to him on a daily basis, he wrote a book about Bob Fontaine. I know I mentioned him before. He went and scouted in Russia. Nobody else was scouting in Russia. Like, they were going out and doing things that teams weren't even doing yet, and it paid off. Obviously, they won a World Series, and they had an incredible farm system for how long that was built by them. And the Angels were on the forefront of stuff. I mean, you look at a guy like Joe Madden, who I don't know if this is a real quote or not, but I feel like some people call him the father of analytics in a sense, like with some of the stuff that he was doing for the Angels and the numbers and things like that, and what he went and did in Tampa Bay and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to call him the father of analytics, you can 100% probably do that. But they're not doing that anymore. They're not the forefront of anything. They follow a lot of teams in a sense, minus what I said about promoting their players, and whether that's good or bad, I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, for the longest time, I would go to minor league games, and it was the Quakes against the 66ers, and that's the Dodgers or the Quakes. And I would see them out there with computers. I'd see them out there with Edgertronic cameras. I see them out there with just a bunch of technology. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to go watch them instead of watching the Angels prospects, because at the time, best prospect was probably Jaime Barria or somebody like that. But I'm going to go watch and see what they're doing, because Walker Buehler is pitching, or Julio Urias is pitching, and see, like, why you guys have – this is before time, obviously, before like any of that crazy stuff was really being pushed out there. But why do you guys have – why are the Astros hiring people from NASA? Like, what is going on here? Like, why are these teams doing that? And the Angels Angels are out there throwing bullpens, just trying to hit spots and things like that. Like, so that's what my gripe would be the Angels used to be in the forefront of everything. They used to go and you didn't need to spend a whole lot of money, but they used to go scout in a whole bunch of places. I think at one point they had 10 professional scouts. Like, I didn't see a scout at a minor league game in 2021. I did not see an Angel scout at a minor league game in 2021. It's the craziest thing to me. And I was like, that's the Angels. One of the Angels' biggest issues is that they're not at the forefront of anything anymore. And if you want to blame Perry, if you want to blame Artie, if you want to blame Ron, if you want to blame whoever you want to blame for that, go ahead and do it. But at some point, you got to find your way to get back to that, and without spending the Dodgers type of money. Like, you can't go out there and spend $300 million on a roster, or $400 million on a roster, and all this stuff. But the good teams tend to just produce this young talent out of nowhere. Like, you'll just hear about this random Dodger Zaire Hope. Like, where is Zaire Hope? Or Christian Campbell was a 6th round pick out of Georgia Tech, or Chandler Simpson was whatever pick out of Georgia Tech. And I mean, 30 teams passed on him, and all of a sudden these guys are top 100 prospects. So yeah, I at some point you got to get to the forefront of everything if you want to end up being good again. And I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find creative ways to differentiate yourself, right? I mean, if you can't afford to hire 200 scouts, okay, then maybe you try to get some guys who are fresh off an economics degree in Yale. You know what I mean? Get them for an internship,
Yeah.
And you get a bunch of interns, right? Eventually, someone there has got to hit on a prospect. you just got to get creative, and you got to find ways to do things for the cheap, right? Once you can start doing things on the cheap and somehow get some production out of that. And let's face it, what's one of the most ways to make profit as an owner? Have a bunch of young guys who you're not paying a bunch of payroll to, yet you're making the playoffs year in, year out. You know, that's the ideal situation. You know, the baseball that we're dealing with now, we and a bunch of other people have said for years, it isn't the baseball of the 90s, right? Where the Yankees were buying the championships. You know, you don't really do that these days. You know, the Royals, the Cubs, hell, a lot of those Giants teams, you build from within, you plug up the holes with free agency. You don't buy a team with free agency like the Angels have tried doing really the last 15 years and experience a lot of success these days.
I would just say that you have to spend money to make money, obviously, and to also to get what you need. I mean, if you're talking about getting these kind of guys that are going to be new and upcoming scouts, they have the numbers, analytics, so they do stuff different, and it's within your vision. You got to spend money to know where those guys are at, which means hire the right guys in the front office first to then get those scouts, to then branch out to all those places like Russia and find those guys that are the hidden gems out there. And I think, you know, since maybe midway through the Disney era or whatever, when it ended, that's kind of gone down. And I have the number one guy I blame for that. But I think if this team needed to turn around, I think that's where they have to start, is in the front office, get the right kind of minds in there, and then have a plan. You know, just have a plan and stick to the freaking plan. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but it just feels sometimes they'll have a plan like a year ago, and then they're like, scrap it, let's do something else this year. Or, hey, they're doing that. And it's sort of, hey, man, if you're going to stick to something, I want to see like a 3-4 year plan, and let's see where we go from there. I want to see improvement, because I could deal with a 72-74 game wins for the year if we're improving on that by another 5 or 6 the next year, and we're building on something and players are progressing.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about quite often, and Derek brings it up on Talkin Halos a lot. And I got a couple notes on that. One would be the transparency between the front office, ownership, and the fans. Like,
yes,
you need to be a little bit transparent. You can't just say, "Oh, we want to compete every single year and run out a lineup like this." And Nate, I know you're really proud of me for saying this.
I'm actually proud of you.
Well, real quick, if I could break in, because me and Fernando talk about that all the time too. The transparency, that's a great point. Do you guys feel we have a media that can actually, besides Sam Blum, get them to be transparent? Because it just seems like whatever they dish out, we're just like, all right.
I got no comment on that.
I know what he wants to say, so I'll try to dance around and say what he wants to say.
Thank you, Dave.
I think the Angels can do it. I think the problem is, like, you're not going to push. You can only push Perry so far, because like these guys are trained to say nothing. Like it's similar in other sports. Like everyone gets upset with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick says nothing ever, right? Like a lot of these really good, well-run organizations say nothing. Do the Angels have reporters that can get stories? I think so. I think Rhett Bollinger actually gets stories more than anyone else on with the Angels. Like that's including Sam Blum, that's including Jeff. Like a lot of the first guys to get something are other organizations, and that's one of my things that I bring up with Jared. That's frustrating. Is like, oh, the Angels are DFAing Jose Suarez, and it's not the Angels that are telling us this. It's the Cubs who are acquiring him somehow, and it's like, how in the heck or like Kyle Hendricks signing, right? Like the Kyle Hendricks signing was reported by a Cubs guy who isn't a well-known guy. He wasn't one of their top reporters, and the Angels are like, oh, I guess we're signing Kyle Hendricks. Does anyone know how much we're signing him for? Nope. Okay, we'll figure it out eventually. So, but that is Artie's way of doing business. Artie does not want anything out. He is a very private person of like, hey, we don't want anything out, because if anything gets out there, then other people will know what's going on, and we don't want to let that happen. So until Artie allows his staff to tell things, and until his staff starts telling things, it's really hard for us to be like, oh yeah, the Angels guys are going to be able to do what they're doing, or be able to or not be able to do what they're doing. So
earlier, Nate had kind of allude a little bit to the front office. Didn't really go too much in depth, but so one of the biggest things that the Angels addressed this offseason was their depth, right? You know, we kind of wanted to make sure that we didn't go from Zach Neto getting hurt to running Jack Lopez back out there. Instead, we ran Nick Lopez. But, you know, that was one of the big things, right? You brought in guys like Kevin Newman. You brought in Travis d'Arnaud to bring a legitimate backup catcher. They really didn't do too much, surprisingly, in the bullpen. I mean, now that they went and got Hunter Strickland back. But I want to ask you guys' opinion on the depth. So on paper, it looked like we had quite a bit. And now it seems like a lot of those guys are getting hurt. Now, Yohan Moncada did come back. But now even that depth is being questioned. So was it enough? Is there ever enough with this organization?
I don't think there's ever enough in baseball in general. Look at the Dodgers right now. I think I feel like half their lineup is hurt right now. I could be wrong, but I feel like I've seen Teoscar. I feel like Tyler Glasnow's out. Clayton Kershaw, I know they weren't talking about him being in the rotation anytime soon, but feels like the Dodgers have been hurt a lot. Besides the point, because we're Angels podcast here. Besides the point, I don't think there's ever enough depth that you can have. Now, I think what we want to ask is how we use that depth is a very good thing to bring up here, because the Angels have this staff, let's say, has done this a lot, where you see a guy get brought up and it's like, why did he get brought up? Michael Darrell Hicks is a good example of that. It's like, you added Michael Darrell Hicks onto the 40-man for one day and you didn't pitch him and then sent him back down. I know he's been up and down a little bit now, but like, what's the point there? Like, you couldn't just kept Caden Dana on the roster a little bit longer, like another day, and not use that 40-man spot. Like, I get it, but and there are times where that has to happen. Like, you sign Hector Neris and he pitches 4 innings for you, and it's like, well, that was his role. You know, he pitched 4 innings, and we're gonna unfortunately have to let you go, and hopefully you're back down in Salt Lake for us here in a little while. So I think you have to kind of question how the depth is used too. And I don't think the Angels have done a great job of using their depth, using their 40-man, using anything like that, unfortunately. Now, I don't think they had enough depth in the outfield. As weird as that sounds, I think they need to go get more pieces. Like, you didn't have a center fielder. You really didn't. I mean, we questioned Joe Adell. I love Joe Adell. Talked to him on our show. He's a fantastic person, but Joe Adell, probably not a center fielder, to be honest. Like, at the end of the day, especially when you said you were moving Trout out of center field. Joe Adell, probably not a center fielder. Kyron Pere's been watching him a little bit tonight, and he needs a lot more time out there. You can tell he has not played the outfield very much, and that's very, very evident on that side of stuff. Taylor Ward, you can sneak him in there for sure, but you didn't have enough outfield depth. Infield depth, I think that you've done okay there, and you could pull from the minor leagues. Like, you've seen guys like Nico Cavadas and players like that. I question why you have 3 first baseman onlys that are left-handed hitters, but that's besides the point. I think Nota's a switch hitter, but that's besides the point. Starting pitching wise, they're perfectly fine. I'm not like, you can bring up Dana, you can bring up young pitchers, and I think that you could do it with the bullpen too. I just don't understand. Sometimes I don't understand how they utilize the bullpen and bringing players up and sending them down and things like that. Because AAA right now
was a big head scratcher for me.
Yeah, AAA is getting real thin right now with their bullpen, and you start seeing them. Some of their players, it's like, oh wow, I guess Chase Silseth is coming out of the pen or something weird like that. You'll start seeing here pretty soon, because the Angels have been pulling guys up. But I always get absolutely shellacked when I report any type of signing, because like the Sean Poppins signing, everybody's like, oh, this guy's going to help us. It's like, well, he might actually be a major leaguer for one day, or he's going to be in AAA because Dakota Hudson needs to come up, or he's going to be in AA because the Angels are bringing up Clausen from AA. So yeah, those signings are what those are for. But depth wise in general, you can never have too much depth at all by any means.
My frustration with the depth question, like, yes, they went and got depth, but like, they went and got Kevin Newman really early. That's a guy that signs right at spring training. Honestly, like you gave him a year plus. You gave him a year plus an option. It's like, do we need to be signing that guy? We literally signed the same guy 2 days before spring training started with Tim Anderson. Like, they are literally the same guy. They play all the infield spots. They can't hit. They're average to above average defenders depending on the year. Like, did we really need to sign him right there? No. Does the 1 million kill the Angels? No. But like, why are we spending early resources on getting guys that you can get in, spring training or right beforehand? That was the first thing. The second thing, I didn't. Huh?
You gonna go on your Kyle Hendricks rant or no?
No. That's fine. Like, it's still not a huge Kyle Hendricks fan. Don't think that signing was good, but like, whatever. They thought that they could do something with him. Hasn't worked out. Also, they just stopped. They stopped signing guys to minor league deals. Jared and I always get excited when somebody signs a minor league deal because we're like, this is free depth. Like, if you cut him, it doesn't cost you anything. If you get him and he plays well, awesome. And our show's always like, you guys only get excited if it's a minor league deal. It's like, that's not true, but like, we just get more excited because it's like, this is a free lottery ticket. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, like, it doesn't cost us anything. And it was like, where was the bullpen minor league signings? We had zero. We just said, you know what? Johnson and Zephyrin, who's thrown a couple innings in the bigs, and we're going to go Garrett McDaniels, who has never pitched above AA. We're just going to roll them out there and hope that this bullpen is going to be good. We're going to roll out Kyron Paris in the outfield, who's played 1 inning of outfield, 42 innings in spring training or whatever it was. We're going to roll him as our backup center fielder. It's like, you're telling me we couldn't have just signed like Kevin Pillar to a minor league deal and just said, hey, Kevin, like, win the job in spring and it's yours. All you really have to do is stay healthy. Great. Like, he was already here. So those were the things where it was like, you could have gotten more in more important places. Like, yes, that's great that they got Travis d'Arnaud, but like, did we really need to go spend $8 million on him? No, but like, I love the signing. I think he's great. I just would have loved to see like the minor league deals for an outfielder and like 2 or 3 bullpen arms and say, hey, we'll give you an opt-out on June 1st. If you guys aren't in the big leagues by June 1st, well, that means we're doing really good because knowing our team, you'll be in the big leagues before June 1st because somebody will get hurt or somebody will pitch bad. It doesn't matter. So, and you would think that's a decent sell to a guy that's like knows that he's not going to be a big leaguer on 20 other teams or so. It's like, hey, come here and you'll probably get a shot because we give a shot to basically everyone.
Yeah, there was 3 guys. Was that?
Might even start.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was 3 guys pretty late into the offseason, right before spring training had started, that I was looking at because my fear was the same thing. It's Adele or Moniak in center. So I had said, like, Travis Jankowski, Manny Margot, Kevin Pillar. Those are 3 guys right there that you can probably give a minor league contract to. All very serviceable defenders, to elite defenders, right? We've seen Kevin Pillar do some great things defensively. Travis Jankowski and Manny Margot, also very good defenders. Manny Margot at one point was a top prospect in Major League Baseball, right? He was up there. Very well respected. Unfortunately, never was able to put it all together fully, but I think he's a serviceable major leaguer. The biggest thing for the Angels the last 10 to 15 years is when people get hurt, they only need replacement level guys, and they could never even get that. A lot of those years like 17, 18, where the Angels missed the playoffs by a couple of years, that's what they needed. They didn't need Daniel Nava playing left field. They just needed someone who was a replacement level left fielder. And then we would have been talking about a completely different season. So, I understand where the mindset was this year about, hey, let's get some depth. It seems like they got depth in some areas, but not in others. You guys already mentioned the outfield. It seemed like infield, we really weren't that low on depth anyway. I think you could have signed 1 or 2 of those guys to minor league deals. Maybe a Tim Anderson and a Newman. You didn't need to get J.D. Davis or whatever. But I digress. Now, the starting rotation has been a bit of a surprise this year. Would you guys agree with that?
for what they have, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean, right? You know, there's nobody sexy in terms of the name, right? The biggest addition on paper was Yusei Kikuchi, and that's another guy. He's been doing very well. He's been giving the Angels a quality start more often than he hasn't, and I've always hated that stat personally. You know, a quality start, well, you give less than 3 runs. I mean, if you give 3 runs every single time, your ERA is still going to be in the 4s and the 5s. You know, you're not going to be an elite pitcher. So I've always thought that stat was silly. But the point is, every time you say Kikuchi goes up there, he's giving the team an opportunity to win. We don't really know, at least I don't, what he's doing for some of these younger guys in terms of a mentor. You know, I know Kyle Hendricks, that was kind of the big reason why they wanted to get him. But they seem to be getting the job done enough. They're keeping the teams in the games. The last couple of games that have been blowouts, it's been more so just a couple bad pitches by the bullpen.
Well, yeah, they're your favorite stat. They have some of the most quality starts this season.
Yeah, the cool thing with this, and Nate, I mean, you coach college baseball, I coach high school baseball, and the one thing that I preach to the starting staff is, and I don't know, Nate, if you do this too, is, I mean, give the team an opportunity to win, and that's kind of what the Angels starting pitching has been doing, and that's kind of what that's what we said at the beginning of the season for the Angels rotation is like, hey man, just give them a chance to win games, and that's the cool thing with quality starts. It doesn't hold much value for me either, but the quality start means you gave the team a chance to win. If you gave up 3 runs or less in 6 innings, there's a chance that you're in a ball game. And you say Kikuchi, I look up right now, and you say Kikuchi did that again tonight, giving up 1 run. I mean, so you're giving the Angels a chance to win. We'll see if they can close this one out and score a couple runs or not. But yeah, that's I like to preach that. I think, Nate, you like to preach that. I'm sure that most pitching coaches like to preach, hey, just give the team a chance to win tonight. You don't need to be perfect by any means, and by no means the starting rotation has been perfect, but they've been giving the offense and the rest of the team a chance to win. Now, can the bullpen do it? Can the offense get hot? That's going to be those will be the next questions. But starting rotation, I've been pleasantly surprised with it, pleasantly happy with it. And the Angels might actually get something in July for Tyler Anderson.
Hopefully this time. They had a chance to trade him last year.
We'll see.
Do you guys think it was true that Perry's asking price was simply too high for him last year?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
I do. I think the same thing happened with Renifo. I don't know about Ward, but I do think with at least Renifo and with Anderson, I think the asking price was way too high for what those guys are worth. They didn't think they were going to get. I mean, and you look at it now, and it's like, well, what are you going to get this year? But also at the same time, yeah, I just don't think. I think that Perry's asking price was sky high.
I've never really liked Taylor Ward's defense personally. I mean, you know, he plays it safe out there. And it seems like we all played baseball. I was always more so of the guy who always laid it out there. So, you know, he's a little more conservative when he's playing the outfield. But, I mean, there's always going to be a role in Major League Baseball for a a right-handed outfielder who can hit 20 to 25 home runs and is at least serviceable defensively. So I have no problem believing that Taylor Ward is going to get a pretty decent contract when he hits free agency this offseason?
Next year. He
Next
has 1.5.
Okay. I thought it's Renifo that's a free agent this year, correct?
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
Do you think Renifo's an extension candidate for the Angels?
I think Luis Renifo is a dime a dozen type of guy. I don't think he plays very good in the infield. You haven't really been able to find a spot for him. I think this draft is going to answer that. I mean, if all of a sudden they draft, and you never draft based by need, but if they draft a third baseman, then all of a sudden it's like,
they do though.
All right, yeah, well, the Angels are drafting by need. You are 100% correct.
They do draft by need.
But I think, yeah, if the Angels draft another infielder, that says a lot. I wouldn't extend him just because, I mean, he's going to get $12-15 million for someone who's a slightly above league average hitter who doesn't really have a defensive spot. I mean, I would rather give Luis Arias that type of money, but Arias is a very similar player to him, though he's found a spot at first base. I feel like I could be wrong, but yeah, I wouldn't extend him. I wouldn't.
And Arias hits better too.
That's fair. Now, I'm glad you brought up the draft. Now, I did want to talk about a tweet that you made a couple hours ago, Jared. And so when the Angels were officially announced as the second overall pick, there was a lot of people who were automatically, saying it's either going to be Holiday or Laviolette, right? That was kind of what the thought process was going into this season. Now the tides have shifted a little bit. I think most people still have Holiday going first. But you think the Angels are actually trending towards drafting a left-handed pitcher, at least as of your most recent tweet. I know you weren't crazy about that idea, but where are you honestly? If you were to put money on it, do the Angels really need another left-handed pitcher?
I draft different than what Perry Manasian's going to do. If it's me, I'm drafting the best player available, and I think the best player available is a high schooler this year. I said it like everybody else did, though I was not told to say it differently, but it was put in my ear to say it a little bit differently. The Angels had a 100% chance of getting either Ethan Holiday or Chase Laviolette. So they still have a 100% chance if they want to go draft Laviolette, or if Holiday's still there, they have a 100% chance to draft one of those guys. With that being said, this is a very good draft to not have the number 1, 2, 3 overall pick by any means. Like, it's one of those drafts where you can get very similar value, very similar talent, where the Angels have been in the past couple of years, 7, 8, 9, 10, so I don't know at the moment, and we're 2.5 months out from the draft. I don't know. There's been everything from Liam Doyle. They were on Dean Curley for a while. I thought for a while it was going to be Jamie Arnold. Jamie Arnold was the best pitcher in college baseball there for a little while, and looked like a Madison Bumgarner. But if Perry's drafting, he is drafting a college player that is going to move up quickly. And if that's Ava Arquette, if that's Jamie Arnold, if that's Tyler Bremner, if that's Liam Doyle, I'm not 100% sure who it will be. You can never have enough young talent, though, if we've learned anything from this podcast here. If I was drafting, I'd draft a high schooler. If Ethan Holiday's there, I'd draft him and give him not whatever amount of money, but I'd give him a good chunk of money. I think Seth Hernandez has a chance to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. Now, I don't think people are going to take him, but I do think Seth Hernandez is one of the best California prep arms to come out of California since Hunter Green, and there's been a lot of good prep arms to come out of California. So I love Billy Carlson. I like Eli Willits. There's a lot of good young talent, and I am never a big fan of drafting prep players, high school players, but this is the draft to do it for sure. I think that they are safer bets than what you have in the college rankings. I think you have a lot of possible relievers. I think you have a lot of Ava Arquette's 35, maybe 40 hit tool, which is a below average hitter who might hit 35 home runs. So you're talking, that's Jorge Soler. Are you drafting Jorge Soler or Taylor Ward with the number 2 overall pick? I don't know. You're getting me. You're putting me down a rabbit hole here. I can talk about this forever. Last thing I will say, because everybody gets mad when I talk about underslotting, I think that any player drafted with the top 3 picks will get underslot by a good margin as well. So if you hear the Angels talking about going underslot, there's a very good chance that they might still get the best player. Like Jamie Arnold is probably going to get underslot where if he goes in the top 3 picks. Seth Hernandez, Billy Carlson, like any of those guys are going to get underslot. Even Ethan Holiday, if he goes 2, I think is going to get under $10 million. So yeah, I'm high school player, but I don't think the Angels are going to do that.
Well, I like how you broke down like the several picks that you would go into. I thought naturally that you'd be nudging Perry to draft 20 more pitchers, but that's just me, So.
I like watching pitchers. I'll tell you that. I'd go sit in the SEC and draft pitcher after pitcher after pitcher in the SEC. But yeah, I don't know at the moment. We're so far out as well. It's going to come down to money. It's going to be who wants to take $8 million and is the best player on the Angels board. I think that's what it comes down to.
Nate, do you like Perry's drafting?
I think that's a yes.
I will say the Zach Neto pick was fine.
Yeah,
that's kind of the only one that I can point to and be like, yeah, that was good. Jared and
Ben Joyce in the second round wasn't terrible.
They got him in the 3rd round too, which was even better.
Okay.
Because they have never had a second round pick until last year. So
I'll say this. I'll say that. I'll let you answer it. Everybody focuses on their first round pick all the time because they expect him to be the best. With the Angels, that hasn't really been the case. You look at Caden Dana, Chase Silseth, like they've gotten a lot of they've used a lot of money late in. So Caden Dana was like a second round pick via the money, but he was drafted in the 11th round or whatever. I mean, they did it with Trey Gregory Alford last year, Dylan Jordan. I mean, they've been very good at pushing the money around that in not having a second round pick. So, sorry, I'll let you finish it.
Yes, they have done a decent job at that, even though you keep counting guys that like make it to the bigs and aren't good. Like you're a Victor Maderos guy where you're like, oh, hey, we drafted him. He made the bigs. Like that counts as a good pick. And it's like, no, he sucks. He can't pitch. Like Silseth hasn't really been that guy yet. Like, yeah, he's been in the bigs. That's awesome. But like, we still want difference makers. Just because like you make the big leagues on a team that has the worst depth in Major League Baseball history doesn't mean that you're a good pick. I think the Shanuel pick and the Bachman pick are the two ones that really, really frustrate me. I'm a big Kumar Rocker guy, especially in that draft. I was like, I don't care what the medicals say. I don't care if he's getting TJ. Every single pitcher gets TJ. And he signed for basically, he would have signed for roughly a little bit more than Bachman, not crazy amount. Where it was like maybe a couple. It wasn't enough where I was like, oh man, I can't touch Rocker. And I truly thought he was a bona fide ace candidate. Where like watching Bachman, it was like, I didn't see it. I thought he was a reliever. That was my personal opinion. Same thing with Shanuel. It was like, this is who you decided to go with. There were a lot more guys. Jared and I go back and forth with Teal. We were upset, even though Teal's a catcher. It was like, well, if you would have been able to move Ohapi to a corner or whatever, or move Teal, like there were some things there where he could have been really good. So I don't know. I just think that he tries to guess on who is the closest to the bigs, not who's going to be the best. And those guys typically aren't the best. The guys that are closest, usually the guys that need a little bit more seasoning, can become a little bit better. So that's the trade-off with the way that the Angels are doing it is, hey, we've got to get this guy to the bigs quickly. He's got to be really good right away, instead of like, who's going to be the guy who's going to be good for, 7, 8, 9 years, instead of the guy who, yeah, he's at the big leagues. He's hitting 240 with 10 homers, but like that there was a guy in that draft who hit 280 with 30 homers in 1 year. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because we've seen both sides of the extreme, right? So you had Billy Epler, who used to draft the most athletic guy, right? Joe Adell, I joked all the time that before he had really proven last year that his power was sustainable at the major league level, he used to post all those spring training videos where he was like jumping through a flaming hoop and, those 10 padded mats. Nobody ever questioned Joe Adell's athleticism. It's always been there. It's just always been his ability to do the little things, right? Can you catch a pop-up? Can you make that throw from the outfield? He's always trying to play, show off his arm. So, but he was always super athletic. So I understand where Billy Epler's mindset was there. Jordan Adams, Kyron Paris, those were all guys who had high athleticism and just haven't been able to put it together fully at the major league level. We've seen glimpses, sure. But and now you have Perry, who's kind of drafting for need, who's trying to get the guy that's going to come up immediately. I'm the guy on the network that's not sold on Nolan Shanuel. His defense scares me all the time. And this is probably more of a hot take than anything else, and I think people are going to make fun of me for it. It's just I don't think he's a major league caliber player at this moment. He needs to spend some legitimate time down at the minor leagues. He has a great eye. No one's ever questioned that. But it's his ability to make consistent contact that worries me. It's sometimes it feels like he's trying to hit for power when that's not his game, and that should never be his game. You're a 10 home run a year type of cat, and that's fine. But, you need to work on your defense if you want to be part of this young core going forward. But, I could talk about that forever.
Got a question. I have a question for you guys here. If
Sure.
Joe Adell, Kyron Paris, Jeremiah Jackson, those type of guys were drafted elsewhere, are they better players?
I don't know. It's hard to give the Angels a benefit of the doubt at the current moment that they are the right organization to develop those type of guys, right? I feel like if they're in a situation where they were in Tampa or Oakland, though, or even the Dodgers, dare I say, I know I'm going to get hate for that. Those are organizations that routinely get the best out of their players. But those are also the organizations that if they're trying to trade for your guy that's batting 220 in the minor leagues, okay, what do you see in him? Right? In 2020, Luis Rengifo was connected to the Ross Stripling trade and Jock Peterson. I'm sure you guys remember that. And a lot of us were like, why do you guys want Luis Rengifo? Right? But if the Dodgers are looking at a guy like Luis Rengifo, what do they see in him that you don't? So maybe there's certain organizations where I could definitely see those guys at least having a better opportunity to succeed. But also those guys haven't been dealt the proper hand, right? You know, was Joe Adell ready when he came up? No, we all agreed to that in 2020. You know, Jeremiah Jackson never really got into a full legitimate chance at the major league level here with the Angels. He got a quick sip of coffee, if memory serves correctly. And then who was the other guy?
Kyron, Parrish, Jordan Adams, those types of guys.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
Jordan
when the Philly
Adams
routine.
is in Baltimore now. And that's an organization that's good at developing guys, but I don't know if it's too little too late for that. And, Kyron Parrish is kind of getting a shot now. I really want to like that guy. I like what we saw from his spring. And I just really hope that he's kind of able to figure it out. He's kind of started to hit himself out of it the last couple games. But, Jared, it's just really hard to give the Angels the benefit of the doubt that, hey, no, this is the right organization. We're certainly not the organization for a lot of reclamation projects. I'll tell you that.
I'd have to say I could easily see like Joe Adell playing 2 or 3 years in Colorado, flourishing, and then getting an opportunity somewhere else, like signing a contract. And there was a reason why Pittsburgh was trying aggressively in the offseason to go after Taylor Ward. You know, they saw something, like Fernando said, in him, and I think he could flourish somewhere else. The whole idea we're hearing about, Ward does his own thing. That I don't think flies in about 90% of the rest of the organizations in the league. I think he could be turned into something pretty good. I think, last year's 25 and 65 or something like that, 240 average. I think he could be like a 270, 275 hitter and be closer to those Tim Salmon numbers that he had, like close to 30 home runs, close to 100 RBIs, that type of dude. I think he can be much better now in his career, late in his career, not so much, but he could have been. You saw what happened in Philly with Marsh, and they got a hold of him. It seemed like he wasn't even really able to get off the plane and set his bags down. They were already like, okay, you need to stand like this. It worked with him. Certain organizations can do that. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of these players will be much better on other organizations. And until we know what truly is the Halo way, what truly makes a Angels ball player, because it seems like you guys said earlier in the show, it changes from year to year. We don't know. I mean, because this is why I got to ask you guys, because I've asked Fernando this before. Is this the most important draft in like the last decade for the Angels?
This is a draft that can definitely change the trajectory of where the Angels are going, given the amount of money that they have, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, even if it is, like I said, I mean, what I said before is very true. I don't want the Angels to have the number 2 overall pick this year, but having all that money is really, really nice. They haven't had. I think this is the most amount of money that they've ever had in a draft to spend. So I expect to add 10, maybe 15 players to my top 30. The top 30 prospect list when this is all said and done. I don't know if that's going to happen. That'd just be my expectations for sure.
Well, they can't be in last place as far as minor leagues after this draft, right? It's got to nudge them up a couple spots.
We'll definitely see. The reason why I asked that question though is because you look at what Angels GMs have done in the past. I talk about this with Nate all the time. Gary went out there and signed, players, right? I mean, he went out and he had the farm system in a sense already. He had some young talent already, and they just needed to go sign players, and it ended up not working out. Billy went out and got the best, the highest ceiling guys that you can go get. Joe Adell was the highest ceiling. Kyron Parrish was the high ceiling guy. Jordan Adams had the highest ceiling out of that draft at that spot. So they went and had that. They went and got those guys, but the farm system wasn't equipped to develop those guys at all. And I think we're seeing that now with Joe Del Cairo and those types of players. And now full circle, we're seeing Perry Manasian, and he's kind of learned from previous GMs and not, hey, like, we're not going to have the farm system, so we're not going to have the development system because we don't have the money for that. So we're just going to push guys to the major leagues, or now they have a nice $20 million facility in Arizona that they can use. And I'm sure we won't see too many prospects come out of there that very often. But so Nate hates this when I say this, but I do like what Perry's done with the farm system, given what he has been given to him, for sure.
Resources, yeah, for sure.
I would go a different way. I think the way that they went with the Ohapi thing makes way more sense. Like you draft your guys, you can't develop them, make them wanted by other teams, trade them, and go get somebody who is either ready or go get somebody who is an established star. And honestly, like, that's kind of what the Dodgers do. Like, I know everyone's like, they buy a lot of guys, which they do, but they also have the farm system where you're looking at guys going, like, a couple of years back, we were looking at Diego Cartier going, how is this guy ranked top 15 prospect in Major League Baseball? We don't get it. And it's like Major League Baseball has them ranked so highly because, it's the Dodgers. They obviously know what they're doing. And you see Diego Cartier gets outrighted and off the 40-man. It's like, okay, that might be the way the Angels have to do things, is like make it look like we have some really good prospects, trade them, and get some pieces that how good they are, instead of like, let's roll the dice with this 18-year-old kid who hasn't been good.
Yeah, that comes with time, right? Okay, so probably the last question I got. I know we got to start wrapping up. I appreciate your time, guys.
Yes.
So Perry, this is a contract year for him?
He's got another year.
2 years. 2 years.
Okay. So with the a lot of time that he's got left to play with, do you guys see him? I don't want to say turning the organization around extremely, right? I'm not saying that this is going to be a top 15 farm system, potentially, right? This draft has the ability to move you up quite a few pegs, right? That's the hope when you have the second overall pick. Do you guys really see the tides turning by the time that his contract expires?
I think he's done a very good job building some young talent. If you asked me this last year, I would have given you a different answer to what I'm about to give you. But I think right now you haven't seen enough to continue to think that he's going to make this organization any better. I think I'm stuck by saying this, and Nate, you've gotten in my head a little bit on this, unfortunately, but I think at some point you're going to have to move on from Perry Manasian before the contract is up, only because you need to start seeing wins. And the Angels haven't been able to do that yet, even with this young core group of guys. I think you need to give, I view it like college, and I always have, like, you bring in your recruiting class your first year and they're all freshmen, or, you bring in some guys from your old school and things like that. You don't expect to be great, but I think by year 4, you expect to be competing. And I think the Angels, especially with the way they've pushed up their young talent that we've talked about, I think that we should see some type of improvement, and we just have not seen that yet. I think he's done a fair job. I don't think he's done an unbelievably great job. I think that they need to find ways to build around this young core group of guys, and that's where the Angels have lacked. Like, I have nothing wrong with Yusei Kikuchi, Tyler Anderson, those types of guys, but also I do have a problem with them because they're not making this team any better. At some point, you need to be better at building the Angels itself, not the 66ers, not the Trash Pandas, not Salt Lake. You need to build the Angels into a winning team, and they just have not been able to do that. Would I give them a little bit more time? Yes. I think you give them this draft and maybe you give them another 365 days. But if we're at this point again where the Angels are, 10, 12 games under 500 next year, and you don't see any improvement, then it's like, all right, I think it's about time for Perry Manasian. I think he's done a fair job right now. Nate, go ahead and tear it down. But Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's unrealistic expectations to say the Angels will ever have a top 15 farm system in Major League Baseball, and that's not Perry Manasian's fault. That's not any GM's fault that they've had. I think that's just the way that the Angels are built with what they've spent their money on, and the way that Perry is going about his business of drafting all these college kids and putting them in the big leagues. Like, you're never going to be a top 15 15 ranked prospect system in Major League Baseball just because it's like, okay, you've been in the minor leagues for a month, you're hitting out of your mind, we need your position, great, you're in. And so, like, it's really hard to gain that prospect ranking because, you know, they do it after the draft and they do it after the season. By the time the draft is over, the Angels are already talking about when are we calling this kid up. And then by the time the season's over, the kid's already played 15, 20 games. And it's like, okay, he's not going to get put on a top 100 list. And that's how you move up those lists, is by getting more top 100 guys. So for the Angels, it's not like we don't want to see him there. We just want to see I would rather them rank organizations rather than prospect systems. You know, I would rather them say, like, who's got the best organization top to bottom, because that is more important to me than, hey, you've got a really good farm system. And we've seen, like, yes, teams with really good farm systems have been able to win, but usually it's not with their farm system. Like, the reason the Padres have been able to win games is because they have used some of their prospects, but then they've traded those prospects to other organizations to get better pieces. So
Juan Soto.
Like, yes, Michael King ended up in the Juan Soto trade, and like you can go through all these things of like, hey, they went and got Dylan Cease, they went and got Juan Soto, like they spent money on Manny Machado. That is more important to me, is like at the end of next year, like, what would you rank the Angels organizationally? Because as of right now, like, I'm ranking the Angels 29th, 28th, like the Marlins and the White Sox. You know, the White Sox are for sure behind them, and then you have like the Rockies. Sorry, the Rockies are for sure behind them, and then you have like the White Sox and the Marlins, who are all in that range. And it's like, if we're still in that range after this draft and after the free agency, it's like, okay, Perry, what have you done? You literally have made us worse, because we were never the 29th overall organization. We were always in that, like, at least 25th.
We were spoiled as kids growing up. I think they're the best organization in all of sports for a while, voted on by like ESPN or something like that, let alone just in baseball. So yeah, I think we were spoiled, Nate, as kids, unfortunately.
Absolutely. You guys grew up in the right era. That's
did.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm 30, so I mean, I've definitely experienced both. I've experienced both of the days. I mean, you know, Todd remembers going to the stadium like in the 90s. I was born in 95, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember, because last night's game reminded me a lot of when the Angel Stadium was enclosed and you'd have 15 to 17,000. They announced 25 last night. I'm like, yeah, right, dude. It was maybe 13,000 there. So, but yeah, dude, guys, great stuff. As always, if you guys are just, and gals are just following these guys or seeing them for the first time, Talkin Halos, this is the kind of content they bring. We shut up and let them talk, because they bring a lot of cool stuff to the table and bring in a lot of in-depth analysis. You've heard us talk before, so it's time to let them talk. And also, again, social media, guys, and where can they find you outside of YouTube?
Yeah, you're not going to get my Snapchat or anything like that, but no, I'm just kidding. No, you can
Come on, slide it in the DMs.
No.
Do 30-year-olds still use Snapchat?
MySpace, just MySpace.
MySpace.
yes.
Yeah, you're not getting MySpace or anything like that from me. But no, you can follow myself on X at Jared_Tims, Nate Green 34. Yeah, I have a lot of fun on X. At some point, I got to get off of that thing, but it's a lot of fun on there. I like listening to people complain way too much, but yeah.
Well, you're following the right team if that's the case.
Yeah.
Lots of
We are one of those accounts, but that's what X is for. You know, just kind of shit posting, you know, something that you're going to regret in like 2 hours. I remember during Easter Sunday, I was like, well, time to watch WrestleMania. And then the Angels came back to win. So people were hounding me pretty good for that. So that's fine. That's what X is for, guys. It's to post something and regret it later.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, guys, for coming on and spending some time with us. and maybe someday we can bless. We can make our presence known on your show. As I should say, I was saying the wrong thing. My bad. I get tongue twisted sometimes.
We'll get you guys on at some point for sure. We'll have some fun. And actually, hopefully, talk Angels winning baseball or something like that.
Yes, yes, we would like to switch things up a little bit.
It'd be good.
On behalf of all of us here at Halos in the Infield and Talkin Halos, thank you and have a great day, everybody.